Good evening, everyone. Today is August the 28th, 2018. The time is now 7 o'clock p.m. This is the regular scheduled board meeting of the Richland County School District 1 Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners have been in executive session since 5:30 p.m. At this time, we will call this evening's meeting to order, and we will begin with our invocation on tonight by Commissioner Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we go into prayer, we must acknowledge those things that happen in our district that may be of a tragic sense. And we'd like to take a moment of silence for the student that passed away. So before we go into prayer, let's take a moment to reflect on the bereaved. Father God, we come to you. We come to you in thanksgiving, Father, that we are here to do your will and your way. In Proverbs 3, 5 and 6, it said, trust in the Lord in all thy ways and acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he shall direct our path. Our paths have converged here today, Lord, to do those things to better this district, for our students, for our teachers, for our administrators, for our community, for all those that come together to help each other, to make each other better. Lord, we're here today in hope that we say those things that are pleasing to you, that we acknowledge that we don't necessarily just have a job to do, we have a purpose to fulfill. We're here, Father God, in the United States where we proclaim that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we claim tonight, and we pray, that we stand up to that precept and that purpose. So, Lord, we pray that the meditation of our heart and the words of our mouth be acceptable in your sight, for you are our strength and our Redeemer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Black, for providing that invocation for us on tonight. We'll now move to 5.2, which is our agenda adoption. Before we call for the agenda adoption, we would like to add one item that was added in executive session, which is already stated on the public session under Office of the Board, which is 7.1 Board Report. That was an item in executive session, which would be 4.1, which is our board retreat, which was discussed in executive session. We'll be reporting out on that in our board report on tonight as well. At this time, we'll call for the adoption of the agenda.
Madam
For
Chair.
approval.
It's been
Second.
moved by Commissioner Devine. It's been seconded by Commissioner Black. We'll now call for any questions or comments before calling for the vote.
Yes, Madam Chair. I ask that the record reflect that I left executive session with the topic of board retreat talk because I believe that it is not an exception, it is not part of the 5 exceptions provided by the Freedom of Information. I do not see why we cannot just discuss this in public. The stipulations of the exceptions of FOIA are very clear. And so I left the session. I'd like for the record to note that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner King, and your point is well taken. And as previously stated by myself, the board retreat will be reported out to everyone at 7.1 under board report. We'll now call for the vote. Let the record show the vote is 7-0. The agenda for tonight's meeting has been approved. Also, let the record reflect that all board members are present and in attendance on tonight. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. And if there's no objection from the board, we'd like to read all of those items in. 6.1 is minutes. 6.2 is the abbreviated July financials. 6.3 is the contract extension for Ingenuity SC in Richland 1. 6.4 is the contract extension for temporary personnel staffing services. And 6.5 is the contract extensions for facilities, material repair, operation, MRO, and industrial supplies. Pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bishop and second by Commissioner Devine. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments on any of those items. Commissioner King?
Yes, Madam Chair. I do not know what your or Mr. Devine's intentions are on the consent agenda, given the contract extension for Ingenuity SC, but I am respectfully asking you to recuse on this matter because pursuant to the Ethics State Law 8-13-700B, it provides that a person must recuse on a matter in which a business with which you are associated has an economic interest of $25 or more. This contract is $550,000. A business with which an elected official is associated may be a nonprofit, as Ingenuity SC is, on which either the elected official or elected official's immediate family serves as a director on the board. So I respectfully that you and Mr. Devine recuse from this vote.
Ms. King, and your comment is duly noted, but you're out of place and you're out of order. It is not your call to make that decision for a board member. Those decisions are made by board members. And
I'm not out.
recusals, I'm speaking. Recusals are in order if a board member feels that they cannot make a right decision or judgment in a matter. So you are out of order.
I am
Are there
not
any
out.
other questions or comments from any other board member?
I do have another
Ms.
comment.
King?
I am not out of order. This is a misplaced notion, Mrs. Harris, and really, with all due respect, the statute is very clear. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong, but you serve on the board of that organization, and your vote will influence the economic outcome for that organization, and it's $550,000.
It's a nonprofit organization.
It doesn't matter. The
Board members
statute
are
said-
not paid, Ms. King.
It doesn't matter.
Ms.
Now, I
King,
have stated this.
Attorney Williams?
If the
Can you
record will state that, thank you.
Attorney Williams, can you speak to this matter, please? Okay. While
Madam
we're
Chair,
waiting, are there any other questions coming? Commissioner Devine?
in the interest of time, can we approve the other agenda items and approve contract extension?
Can we pull Ingenuity SC's contract to the side and come back to that contract? Okay. Okay, awesome. We're going to call for the vote that's before you right now. Make sure the record reflects this. For the minutes, the abbreviated July financials, the contract extension for temporary personnel staffing services, and the contract extensions for facilities, material repair, operation, and industrial supplies by the board. All those in favor? Want to do that on? Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson.
Is that? The section is 8-13-700B.
Let the record reflect that the items as previously stated under 6, which is 6.1, 6.2, 6.4, and 6.5 have been approved. Attorney Williams, do you have the information for 6.3 as of yet? Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we table item 6.3 until legal counsel has received and reviewed the information needed to proceed for tonight's vote.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to table item 6.3 by Commissioner Devine, second by Commissioner Bishop. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. That vote will be tabled to the end of the meeting. At this time, we'll move on to 7, which is 7.1, Office of the Board Report. And we're going to open up the floor at this time to Commissioner Devine, who will report out on our board retreat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do want to report out that on Thursday, August the 18th, Richland 1 School Board of Commissioners met and had our retreat. And just a follow-up from the retreat, we discussed several items, those including board leadership, vision, accountability, school relationships and communications, and policymaking. Overall, the comments were that the board involvement was great and great participation. The information shared was great, general conversation, and the dialogue was of tremendous blessing. And so just want to report that out, and that we will continue to meet on a quarterly basis going forward, and that that was primarily it from the board retreat.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine. Are there any other reports? We will go ahead and go into the total board report. At the beginning of the school year, the board is always challenged to visit all of our schools, and we are happy to report, Dr. Witherspoon, we've visited 58 or 52 schools. So I'm trying to figure out that math, but somewhere along the line we have been able to cover all of our schools for opening. So we certainly want to thank our colleagues for their efforts in making sure that we are in all of our schools, making sure that we give well wishes not only to our faculty and staff, but to our children and parents as they come back in for another wonderful and awesome school year. Any other reports at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Commissioner King?
I'd like to read a statement. So at the last board meeting, we heard from several teachers who came before the board to explain their despair and show their dismay and their distress. They braced for courage and used their teacher voices to bring an issue that deeply affected them and advocate for themselves and others. I'll be honest, it was not a very comfortable moment. That said, in those teacher voices, I heard a mixture of emotions, including anxiety and frustration, but what I really heard was so much care and passion and dedication, a deep sense of responsibility toward preparedness for returning students. And that gave me great comfort, because we say in Richland 1 that we have the most caring teachers, and that was a great example. So we often ask our teachers to speak up and advocate for themselves and for the welfare of the children that they serve every single day. Public participation is open to everyone, including teachers. And while there is a process and a policy in place for public speaking for teachers and for employees to voice their concerns, it's good and healthy to hear from teachers and staff on ways to improve the system and the process, just as much as when they bring their success stories. Unless proven otherwise, I vouch for Dr. Witherspoon's keen sense of right and duty toward doing what is right for the children we serve. Consequently, that means providing teachers with all the necessary tools and support they need to be ready and effective in the classroom. So when miscommunication, as it was openly recognized, or mishap happens, we all have a duty to focus our efforts on working collaboratively, openly, and positively, because the outcome for children is in the balance. And I want to thank all the teachers that are here tonight. I heard that there were a lot of teachers coming here, and I want to thank for your service and welcome you back for the school year. It's a blessing, and we know how hard, but how joyful your work is every day. That concludes my statement, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Any other board reports from any board member?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Bishop?
I want to recognize a local radio talk show host named Cynthia Hardy, who hosts a show called On Point. She took the courageous position to talk about teachers and welcome them back to the community of education. And I thought it was very courageous because we do need to have more conversation about the state of education. There's a fight that always happens every year for election. And I'm not here to promote anyone's political agenda, but I think that we need support being a voice for education from the total community. Because there's a fight as far as funding, there's a fight as far as resources and opportunities. And so as we collectively look at the state of education, let your voice be heard. Let it be known that we need to make education a top priority. If you have not studied or found out what's going on, make yourself known. Please, please find out some of our ills and our problems with the state of education across the state. Because there is a understanding that we all should know that we are being funded at 2007 rates and 2008 rates in 2018. You can't buy a gallon of milk with that same price. Let's continue to put a voice out there, and let's be vocal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bishop, for those remarks, and we certainly echo your sentiments. I think it goes back to the law conference that we all had to attend that tells us the things that's coming down the pipes, federally speaking, as well as from the state. And it's important that your voices be heard, but make sure that the voices are being heard to the individuals that make the changes. As Commissioner Bishop just stated, it is 2018 and we're being funded at a 2008 level, and we don't control that. That is controlled at a state level. And it is important that the state officials hear your voice. They hear ours. Trust me, they're hearing ours, but they need to hear yours as well. So I certainly want to echo your sentiments on tonight, Commissioner Bishop. Any other reports at this time? Commissioner Sauls?
I want to take us back to the 58 schools that we've been out to. I think I might know how that happened. We were crossing in the streets. I wanted to point out the fact that, so Madam Chair mentioned the fact that for the first 2 weeks, we go out to the schools. And I usually walk into those schools and point out to the administrators that I think it is asinine that we do this because they're flustered, they're frustrated, they have parents in the front office with unregistered children, and here comes a school board member saying, "Hey, what you doing?" Our team members out in Richland 1 have done nothing but greeted me with smiles. Granted, I have been carrying dozens of donuts with me, but they have also offered to take me down the halls and take me into the classrooms and show me around. And most of the time, I have turned them down politely and said I will come back in a month or 6 weeks. But I want my fellow commissioners to know, and the EDs and the other R1 staff members out, because honestly, the administrators and teachers in the room know this, and the parents need to know this. I have not been in the way, and that was a nice feeling to pop in, and not have them just look at me and say, "What are you doing here?" There are 58 on that list because we have been crossing paths, because I think there have been several times when I walk in and I'm the third commissioner that's been there in 2 days. But again, I want to kind of just assure everyone at the front of the room and then assure everyone on the other side of the room that they had it under control for the past week and a half. Not that I ever doubted it, but I always like to say that the first week of school. And then I have to look back out and say thank you to anyone out in the room who is a part of that. But yeah, that's how the 58 happened. We don't compare schedules. We just go out and do. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Sauls, for your report. Are there any other reports at this time before we move on? Commissioner Devine?
This weekend, I guess you said earlier, we did have school law this weekend, and so we were appreciative of the School Boards Association inviting us down for school law and some of the things that we learned about the new provisos happening in the state as far as school takeover, as far as some other things that's happening within the state. And it's so important that, again, echoing my colleagues that the voices are here. We appreciate the voices, and that we want the voices to continue to sing in unison and in chorus with us as we go to the State House each and every year during that time. And we want to make sure, again, that as we talk and we read things, that we're not doing political grandstanding just because there are a different group of people here than what was here before. So again, we want to make sure that everyone continues to sing well in the same voice, the same chorus, each and every year. So again, we appreciate the audience being here. Reach out to us, and we will be glad to support you guys in whatever it is you're trying to do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. At this time, we will move on to the Office of the Superintendent. Do you have that information for us ready?
I do.
Okay, Attorney Williams, we're yielding to you.
I have found that statutory provision, Madam Chair and board members,
Mhm.
because I will be providing legal advice, I would recommend that we go into executive session unless you all vote to waive the privilege.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Sauls to go into executive session. We have a second by Commissioner Bishop. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those that oppose signify by saying nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. The Board of Commissioners will go into executive session. We will recess at this time. At this time, we will ask for a motion to go back into public session.
Move to go back into public session.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Black for the board to go back into public section. It's been seconded by Commissioner Devine. At this time, we will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Okay, we are back in public session. The ayes have it. At this time, the board did adjourn to get legal advice going back to a contract that is before us for 6-3, which is the contract extension for Ingenuity SC in Richland 1. And at this time, Attorney Williams will read a clarification of, I believe, the proviso or the law as it states. And following that, we will be asking for the vote. Attorney Williams.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon, Section 813-700B, which is dealing with the State Ethics Commission, states the following, starting with B: no public official, public member, or public employee may make, participate in making, or in any way attempt to use his office, membership, or employment to influence a governmental decision in which he, a family member, an individual with whom he is associated, or a business with which he is associated has an economic interest. A public official, public member, or public employee who, in the discharge of his official responsibilities, is required to take an action or make a decision which affects an economic interest of himself, a member of his immediate family, an individual with whom he is associated, or a business with which he is associated, shall: 1, prepare a written statement describing the matter requiring action or decision and the nature of his potential conflict of interest with respect to the action or decision. 2, the public official is a member. If the public official is a member of the General Assembly, he shall deliver a copy of the statement to which the presiding officer of the appropriate house. The presiding officer shall have the statement printed in the appropriate journal and require that the member of the General Assembly be excused from votes, deliberations, and other action on the matter on which a potential conflict exists. This would not be applicable in this situation. 3, if he is a public employee, he shall furnish a copy of the statement to his superior, if any, who shall assign the matter to another employee who does not have a potential conflict of interest. If he has no immediate superior, he shall take the action prescribed by the State Ethics Commission. That would not be applicable here. If he is a public official other than a member of the General Assembly, he shall furnish a copy of the statement to the presiding officer of the governing body, of any agency, commission, board, or of any county, municipality, or a political subdivision thereof, on which he serves, who shall cause the statement to be printed in the minutes and require that the member be excused from any votes, deliberations, and other actions on the matter on which the potential conflict of interest exists, and shall cause the disqualification and the reason for it to be noted in the minutes. 5, if he's a public member, he shall furnish a copy to the presiding officer of any agency, commission, board, or of any county, municipality, or a political subdivision thereof on which he serves, who shall cause the statement to be printed in the minutes and shall require that the member be excused from any vote, deliberations, and other actions on the matter on which the potential conflict of interest exists, and shall cause such disqualification and the reasons for it to be noted in the minutes. C, where a public official, member, a public employee, or a member of his immediate family holds an economic interest in a blind trust, he is not considered to have a conflict of interest with regard to matters pertaining to that economic interest if the existence of the blind trust has been disclosed to the appropriate supervisory office. We're not dealing with a blind trust. D, the provisions of this sections do not apply to any court in the unified judicial system. E, when a member of the General Assembly is required by law to appear because of his business interests as an owner or officer of the business or in his official capacity as a member of the General Assembly, this section does not apply. And those are the applicable sections of Section 813-700, Section B. That was the question.
Thank you so much, Attorney Williams, for providing that information and clarification to the board. Is there a motion on the floor for item 6.3, contract extension for Ingenuity SC in Richland 1?
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Bishop. It's been seconded by Commissioner Black. At this time, we will call for the questions, if there are any. Seeing none, hearing none.
I have a question regarding the contract, Madam Chair.
Commissioner King?
So in the past, how we started with Ingenuity ST, which was really fabulous, it was a SIG grant. Is there any grant money, or is this all general fund money now?
We budget for it in the general fund.
Okay, so all of it comes out of general fund?
Yes.
Okay. And in the past, the level of this contract is about $550, well, it is $550,000. What are we getting in return? And is there a man-hour or a number of hours that we can get down to see what? 'Cause I've heard in the past a presentation where it's spent about 3,000 man-hours. And really, what troubles me here is I know that there's a lot of good work being done, but I think that there are also some other work that is so-so. If I divide the number of, and I think I had heard 3,000 hours by $550,000, that's about $180 an hour. And it's hard for me to approve a contract when our teachers are not making that much money. So those are hard numbers for me that I look at. And for one vendor to have a contract as large as this one, because I believe that's probably, other than equipment, is just questionable, or maybe it's very delicate. So that's it, Madam Chair.
Floor is open for any additional questions or comments. Commissioner Devine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ms. Williams, to be clear with your response, the member should only be recused if there's an economic interest to them personally or to someone in their family.
That is what Section B indicates.
So the question raised by my fellow commissioner regarding the economic interests was incorrect. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. So I say that to say I'm highly disappointed that a fellow commissioner who's been on this board at least 8 years would do such a thing like this when we voted on several contracts in the past and let me tell you what the interest is, what she considers the economic interest. My wife serves on Ingenuity's board. I put full disclaimer. Been on the board for several years. There's no economic impact to my family. She's just a board member because she serves on city council. She's the city council appointee. There's no economic interest. She's aware of that. I'm not sure why she pointed this out tonight, but I can't sit here and allow that to happen. And again, I am just highly disappointed that a colleague would do that, potentially when we have more people here tonight than normal, and also the newspaper. Now, to answer the question regarding Ingenuity and what they do, it is clearly, we meet first and third Mondays and Tuesdays regarding these contracts. This is a contract extension, same contract from 2017, 2018. We're extending this. We're also including additional schools in this contract. And later in the agenda, we will also hear from Ingenuity. Ms. Megan is here, and she will give you all this information. And what I'm disappointed in is that this is right here. It just says Ingenuity in support of Richland One efforts to build capacity in each of our schools. It's partnering with the district to transition their signature school-specific programming into packages and opportunities that can be offered in the future access across the entire district. These are for our kids in the STEM areas. We do signature activities such as Dress to Success, Dress to Impress. And again, we got additional schools this year. Again, we create playbooks so opportunities can be provided in the future with less support from Ingenuity. So over time, we hope that this contract will decrease in the dollar amount. If you're looking just at the dollar amount, then yes. But again, this is for our students. This is what we do. Again, I'm just highly disappointed that this is brought out in this manner in front of our employees. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. Certainly appreciate those comments. And let me just state, as my fellow colleague has also mentioned, yes, I am a member of Ingenuity SC Board. I serve as the K-12 representative for South Carolina. I don't serve just for Richland One. I serve for the entire state. And there is no financial impact or benefit. If anything, it's kind of hard because it's juggling so many meetings and trying to be in all of my schools, doing what I do care about, and that is the children of Richland One, which, as I stated to them when I joined that board, that Richland One is first. But I don't mind serving the state, as I do as the vice president of the state caucus. But Richland One is first. I'm not going to go into my disappointment because that doesn't matter at this time. But what does matter to me is the benefit of this program. Since this program has been in place, there are students now receiving full rides to college. All of my colleagues are aware. There are entrepreneurship programs that our students are benefiting from for $500,000, serving close to 2,000 students. Not one school, not two schools, not three schools. And there are several programs throughout this district that I'm going to support because it's children, such as Montessori, that gets somewhere near $40,000, $50,000 per pupil. Per pupil. And we can do the math. But $550,000 for 2,000 kids to provide opportunities for kids in this district that we say we care about them all. There are taxpayers across Richland One. And the money is to serve the children across Richland One. All means all. All means all. And I certainly want to apologize to the members of Ingenuity that are here tonight to present that you have to even sit through this. Because at the end of the day, you're making a difference in the lives of children. You have brought programs into this district, ladies and gentlemen, for special ed kids. See, this is the stuff that you don't hear, and we all are aware. We can sit here and play like we're not, but we're all aware. These programs impact special ed kids, those kids that leave us not on a diploma track, but they have an opportunity because of training that they receive. The last time I checked, every kid doesn't learn the same. But I am grateful to be a part of a district that makes sure that we reach every child where they are, no matter what it costs. Because all means all in Richland 1, regardless of how some may feel. All means all. Any other questions or comments from any board member at this time before we call for the vote?
I do.
Commissioner King and then Commissioner Bishop.
The last thing I'd like to say is it's the statute really provides for if any business that you're associated with, it's not even necessarily that you yourself as an economic interest, but the business that you're associated with is clear. You should recuse yourself. At the end of the day, that's a personal decision. Now, we have disagreements, and sometimes we have strong disagreements. We have to respect each other because this board is diverse. And we've agreed to disagree and not take it to a personal level, okay? And the last thing I'll say is that I do appreciate ingenuity. In fact, I was one of the really early very supporters. But I do have an issue with a contract that's this large on some items that I don't believe are really things that we should pay for. Those are things that we should do internally. That's all. Now, I do respect engineering. I've known Megan for a long time, okay? So this should not be character-based. It's purely a business decision, okay? And I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Bishop.
Yes, just for clarity, so we can make sure we move on with the agenda, Madam Chair.
Thank
To
you.
Legal counsel, the layman's term and explanation is that if they do not have any financial gain from this, they can still vote. If they do have financial gain, they cannot vote and recuse themselves. Is that the clear understanding of that ruling?
Each member would need to make a determination if they have
Yes.
economic interest.
Correct. That was my second part of the question, that that's up to their own personal responsibility to make that decision. Thank you so much. Last part, and maybe Dr. Witherspoon can answer this question, because this will probably be explained furthermore, and I hope and encourage that if there's any questions that when this comes up for presentation, you listen to what has been offered through this program so that everyone will have a clear understanding. When this recommendation that's come before us says 3 additional schools, that they weren't part of the 2017-2018 scope, correct?
That will be in Ms. Hickman's presentation.
Okay, and with that being said, that is Keenan, Eau Claire, and a third school is to be named, correct?
I think C.A. Johnson.
C.A. Johnson.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, because in the recommendation it just says 3 additional. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments from board members at this time, we will call for the vote, and we will take the vote manually. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and we're going to ask that hands be raised so we can do a roll call vote. All those in favor? Commissioner Smiling, yay. Commissioner Bishop, yay. Commissioner Sauls, yay. Commissioner Harris, yay. Commissioner Devine, yay. Commissioner Black, yay. Those that oppose signify by raising hand. And Commissioner King, nay. The ayes have it. The contract extension for Ingenuity SC in Richland 1 is approved. Thank you so much, Attorney Williams. At this time, we will move on to the office of the superintendent. And Attorney Williams, you can stay up there because we're actually at the legal status report.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon, information was presented to you during executive session on the status of legal matters in the district. This is an information item. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
This is an information item. Floor is open for any additional questions or comments from any board member. Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you so much, Attorney Williams. We will now move to 8.2, which is our superintendent's report by Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As has been indicated in the board report, this is our first meeting since we've opened the doors for our students, and want to say to all of our students and parents that we had an opportunity to greet in the past 2 weeks. Welcome to the 2018-19 school year. And it's been a joy getting to see our kids and their smiling faces coming back, and seeing the activities in their classrooms, instruction on day one. that's happened, and just hearing about their summers and seeing a lot of smiling faces from our parents. I think several of our parents were more happy than some of the students, but nevertheless, it was a good year. I want to certainly thank all of the work again by administrators, folks working throughout the summer, certainly teachers as they came back, getting up to speed, and assistants and everybody. And as I stated at the convocation, a lot of work had gone on this summer. And this summer seemed extremely short for some reason. But we got a lot of work done, and we'll continue to work through. But I just want to say thank you to each and every one for getting the school year started in grand fashion. We appreciate that. At this time, Madam Chair, I would like to ask Mr. Perkins to come up at this time to give an update on the stadium projects.
Good evening, Mr. Perkins.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon. With regards to the stadium, we have inspected the stadium at Keenan. It passed and it will be available for use this week. We're working very hard to prepare for an inspection at Lower Richland on Thursday afternoon. We still have a lot of work to do, and so we look forward to getting the results on that, working towards opening that for next week. And the last stadium that we're working on this summer is Memorial Stadium. We have quite a bit of work to do on that one. We're working for an inspection early next week. We're trying to schedule that and then make that one available after that. That's it.
Ms. Perkins, if you would, give a real brief update on the Dreer project as well.
With respect to the Dreer project, we have submitted a PUD amendment. We moved into that zone as opposed to creating a new zoning requirement. We opted to go with a PUD amendment based on the mediation agreement that was developed between the community, the city council, and the school district. We've submitted those documents. We anticipate that being presented to the Planning Commission next month, and the first reading in November of this year with City Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Perkins. AD Matz, any update on how this might impact some of the games coming up? I know some are coming online very quickly. If you would, please.
Up to this point, we've been able to move games to Charlie Johnson Stadium at Benedict. We've also now, with Keenan coming online, we'll play Thursday, Friday, and then as we move into the following week, it is a possibility that if we do not have stadiums, it will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday at Keenan Stadium as we make those moves. But as we get closer, we're trying not to look too far out, but it has affected. Lower Richland has lost 2 home games, but we've been able to make those movements and things without too much problem.
Okay. All right.
All right. As Mr. West is coming up, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Perkins and Mr. Carlin for their work that they did in getting that language tweaked in such short order in order to make that deadline, and still trying to manage some of these stadium projects as well. And sometimes the weather doesn't agree, but we continue to muddle through. So thank you all for
Dr.
that.
Witherspoon, before Mr. Guest, also let me stop and thank Benedict College
Absolutely.
for supporting us, because at the end of the day, the weather that we've experienced is at no fault of ours. It's an act of God. But we're just very appreciative to Benedict making themselves available to Richland 1 to be able to have our games there for our students. That says a whole lot about them. And I want to publicly acknowledge Benedict College and say thank you for allowing our students to use the field there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to echo those sentiments as well, from Sportsorama to the other games that we did have to move. So appreciate it. Mr. West, at this time, if you would just give a brief update, please.
Yes, the superintendent asked that I update you on where we are with technology going forward and the issues that have led up to this point in the school year. And I think going back to the context in which all this places is the first place to start with that. I've got these in chronological order. They may not make that much sense.
Yeah.
I hear me fine. Is this better?
That's better.
Okay. Listen for the ringing. Yes. So I'm going to go through this in a chronological way, even though a non-chronological way may be one way to look at it. In 2016-17, when I came to the district, we began discussion of going to zone printers and to removing desktops from classrooms where students had laptops, those kinds of things, as we began building out our long-term plan for the district and working with that. Also in 2016, we began removing some desktops from classrooms as they failed in the process of aging. A lot of those that we removed were beyond the time that we could upgrade or repair. And we continued to do that through 17-18 in terms of attrition. When a device went out, a classroom desktop or a lab desktop went out, if we didn't have something to replace it from the school, we didn't replace it. It was just a matter of planning to move on to students having and using their laptops at school every day, all day long, as part of the process to put the technology to work in the teaching and learning environment. In the summer of 17, which was just a little bit more than a year ago, we were given notice from Homeland Security through state government that there were foreign agents, I won't say they were countries, but they were agents working from foreign countries, that we were notified by Homeland Security that school districts across the country had become the target for hacking into state government networks, and that school districts were considered to be the least secure networks out there, and thus they were being targeted by foreign nationals in their efforts to get into not only school district networks, but the networks to which school district networks are connected, such as the state of South Carolina's network. So we took that to heart. We went through what we needed to do in terms of securing our networks here. During the 17-18 school year, the year that just ended, at least 2 of our districts in South Carolina were hit by ransomware attacks, and their files, their applications, their payroll records, their student records, personnel records were all locked up and encrypted by the software that was let into their networks. And they were down for, one district was down for 10 days, another district was down for almost 3 weeks, trying to find a way not to pay the ransom, but one of the districts ended up having to do that, and the other district was able to get their backups in and deal with the technical aspects of recovering encrypted network information so their networks could continue to work. In December of 2017, 2 chip flaws were identified in every computer on the face of the planet. They were Spectre and Meltdown. Spectre is not so much a concern for us, but Meltdown is a valid entry to any device on the planet, including your cell phone, by the way, to be able to get to personal data, personally identifiable data, and the things that go with that. After that, from December of 2017 until April there really was nothing that we as a district or anybody else as a business or enterprise across the planet could do except to wait and see if there were going to be manufacturing fixes for the chips and how those might be sent out. That has not happened yet. And whether or not the makers of the operating systems, that is Apple's iOS, Google's Android, and Microsoft's Windows 10, could be upgraded to do something about these chip flaws that clearly open doors for the bad guys to get into our networks and then into other networks from us. So sometime in February, I believe, well, before we get to February, stay chronological with this. Being the math major, I'm required to do that. In January, we in Richland 1 began an executive team discussing solutions and possible actions to go forward to protect our networks and to protect student data, employee data, and the things that go with that. The end of January, the 27th of January, we put a moratorium on buying any new technology until we could determine what the next roads were going to be. That moratorium lasted until the middle of April, and during that time, between the end of January and the middle of April, all three of the major computer companies, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, that is not computer companies, but operating system companies, released patches to their operating systems that neither could solve the problem because it was a hardware problem that was the chip issue, but all three of the companies put out upgrades to their operating systems that would mitigate the problem. That is, the operating system sits there and looks at those two flaws all day long, and if something bad seems to be happening there, it'll turn your computer off. That's its job. That's what it does. And that is enough to protect our networks and others. So our decision at that point was to begin to go off the moratorium, and we would buy devices that had the latest version of Windows 10. We use the operating system Windows 10, Windows on all of our servers and our laptops, and most of our desktop applications, both administratively and instructionally. When we decided to go forward with that, of course, every summer we always re-image computers. We decided that we would re-image and update all devices that could be updated to the Windows 10 environment. We also said we would be more aggressive in implementing the removal of computers that did not meet that standard. And that decision was made through much discussion, and with regard to the security of our networks, the protection of student and employee data that are stored on our network, and to make sure that the bad guys could not get to individual devices that our students were using. And so the safety of our students and the security of our students was also at a prime level of the decision to go forward with that. Now, those are the typical background things that we do. When we started at the end of summer, well, even before we got to summer, in May, we announced to all staff and all students that we would be taking all devices, we would be upgrading those. We gave instructions and recommendations about how to move any files that might be in jeopardy of our reinitializing and those kinds of things to OneDrive or to the network drives so that they would come off of the C drives that are part of the computers. And we began that process of re-imaging devices and preparing those devices to go through. One of the things that we hadn't counted on was the fact that this summer we had the best and most extensive summer program, most successful summer program that the district has ever had. In addition to that, it was also the longest running. Summer programs ended about 3.5 weeks before school was to start again. So we, not only IT, but the guys who are doing the floors also, ran into a 3.5 week window there in which we could get work done to establish the things that we needed to set up for the first part of school. So all of that went into the first week that teachers were back, and that is where we found that. So that leads us up to the current status of what we're doing, and that is we're moving forward with the plan. We still have these older devices to get out of the school buildings and onto trucks to go back to Dell. Dell will take those back as we move forward with that. And we're in the process of doing that. That's part of the work that we have plans for right now. And we will continue to monitor the stuff that goes on with our network and work with it from there. So just in summarizing this, we had several things that led us to the decision. One was the Homeland Security warning that came to us that we needed to look out for our networks. Another was that the ransomware hit 2 districts that I know the results from. There was a 3rd district I do not know the results from the ransomware thing. And then the chip flaw announcements, which was a game changer for everybody, because that meant we couldn't control the hardware that we had. We had to do that from an operating system standpoint. We still are checking every day. We find every day that there are devices connecting to our network that are not running Windows 10, current version, and we go find those. We talk to the people who have them. We help them back up anything that they might still have there, and we re-image or we take it off the network. If it cannot be upgraded to Windows 10, it is not safe or secure on our network, and we will not put it back on our network. It is just a matter of protection for our people and our networks as we go. And if our network is hit by something like ransomware or something else, then we're down and none of us do our job in terms of using our technology, because we have to go through the process of recovery and doing those kinds of things. So that's where we are in terms of dealing with the network. Later on, if you would like, if you'll give me an agenda item, I'll come and share with you what the future looks like in terms of what goes on with this, and we'll work with that. But I'll just share one piece of advice for you. And if you have a device at home that is not running the latest version of your computer's operating system, or if you have not updated your cell phone's operating system, be it iOS or Android or anything else, you should do that. You should let that update itself so that you do not have to worry about it, because the chips that have these flaws are in those devices as well. So look out for yourself, because it can deal with your personally identifiable data in the process as well. So I'll leave it with that, and if there are any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Mr. West, we certainly want to thank you for providing that report to the board and the timeline of things, and we certainly want to say thank you for keeping our children as well as our faculty and staff information protected, because that's very important. And as you stated, I am aware of one of those districts as well that did have to pay that ransom, and that wasn't a pleasant experience at all. But we certainly want to thank you for making sure that you stayed on top of that.
Well, let me say it right away, Ms. Harris, is that I'm just the guy who's here. I have 70 other people out there who are doing this job.
Well, I appreciate all of you.
They are all interested in looking out for everybody that they take care of.
We certainly appreciate all of you, and thank you so much for that report. Dr. Wisman, did you want me to open the floor for questions before you finish your report? Because I know you're in it still.
If you want to.
Any additional questions or comments from Mr. West? Commissioner Sauls, Mr. West?
I do have one question, Mr. West. You mentioned, sorry. It's a point of clarification. How about that? You mentioned that word went out in May that this was taking place. Can you let us know who word went out to exactly, since that seems to be kind of where there was a disconnect of sorts?
We go through our regular communications channels to get our information out. That is, we have that cascading process, and our communication channels go through executive team, where the communication starts. It goes through the the communications office. If it's going to go out to everybody, it goes through the EDs. If it's going to principals, those are the channels that we follow.
I mean, I guess, yes, but can you tell me where it went? Like,
Let me speak to that. And hearing some concerns that came, and Mr. West described, depending on the type of information and the audience, there may be some different communication routes. This, for example, this information went out to principals, and I do know in my interaction with principals and going and visit schools, you know, some did cascade the information because some sent word to their respective staffs, hey, the desktops are being moved, come back up. And that did happen. So I think we're understanding that maybe that did not happen. That being said, you know, we sent out something through Karen York's office, I think it was the Saturday or right before school started, since it didn't get cascaded, that did get cascaded across the organization. And in addition to that, there was a link to, you know, some other information as well. So that was the backup, if you will. So again, depending on, you know, who an audience is, if you will, and something like this, if that's something being worked out, but in a particular school, like I said, some did, and they have different communication tools in a respective building. You know, sometimes summer, what have you, or even before the summer, some may not even check, you know, and all of that. So, but I do know that happened in places as well. So.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Black had his hand up, but we'll do Commissioner King and then Commissioner Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. West, obviously that created some chaos, and like I said in my statement earlier, we really need to move past, because we need to get all of our teachers all the tools that they need. But you did acknowledge that there is some sort of miscommunication at some point. So, you know, it's not a perfect system, and sometimes there are glitches. Okay, we have sometimes glitches. It's just, you know, it's hard for teachers who come back, and my understanding was that maybe there was some confusion in the communication on which computers were going to be taken up and which were not mentioned. That said, my question to you now, because we have to focus on the present and the future, we talked about those, what's the little device name again?
The dongles?
The dongles, thank you very much. So initially, maybe there weren't enough dongles ordered, and then we ordered them, but there's also the dongles, whereas the computers had an extension cord to be able to go to the projector and the smart board, and so desks were in certain placement, et cetera. The dongles are like 4 inches or 6 inches, which creates kind of, you know, some consequences. There's a ripple effect and a domino effect. So my question to you is, are all the dongles in, there are two types of dongles of connections on the dongles. Did every person get the right stuff that they needed? Can they have an extension? I mean, all of that, those logistics are important to teachers.
They are absolutely important, and we did receive all the dongles. We distributed, and I will have to say all but 2 schools' dongles to them by Friday of the week that I spoke with you guys. The strategy there was that if the teacher would need to use the laptop to connect to the interactive whiteboard or the panel in the classroom, if the desktop was gone, they would have to use the laptop. If I said desktop, too long a sentence, I forgot. But the strategy there was simply that if the desktop was sitting there, there was already a cable to it that could connect. all that was necessary was to set the laptop there, plug the dongle in, connect the cable to the dongle, and the connection was made. There was no additional wiring or cabling that would have been needed in that same as it used to be kind of scenario. We did run into an issue with some of the dongles not working with a particular Panasonic, and I don't mean to mention it, but that's the only way we identify it, was that a particular type of projector for the interactive whiteboard, and we were able to overcome that. And so those issues are there. There may still be a few out there. The guys that I mentioned earlier, the guys and ladies who are out there serving folks, are looking for those and trying to make sure that those kinds of things are working, and I think the vast majority are at this point.
Okay, my last question is, I know that this affected a lot, the Kate computers as well, and in Kate, sometimes you can't do certain Kate applications on laptops?
Absolutely.
So what's the solution for them?
Well, we are working with Kate now. The Kate folks are identifying the devices, the specifications that they need, the software, the licensing that still brings the software back, and we suspect that we will have devices in their hands within a few short days.
So what do the students do in the meantime?
I'll take that one. What we've worked with our Kate department has reworked that curriculum, so they've changed that for this period of time where they're doing work in those Kate classes that don't necessarily require any application and so forth. So this has been a team effort. So that transition has been made. We've met with, they did some training PD prior to school starting, so they've made that adjustment.
Okay. Commissioner Black?
Just briefly, we appreciate your information. Can you describe your change management methodology or your project management methodology, either now or going forward, in order to prevent or mitigate what's currently transpiring?
And I guess a definition of what you mean by currently transpired.
Well, don't worry about that. Just tell me about your change management and your project management.
Our project management is standard project management, from assignment of staff, assignment of resources.
I mean, are you using Agile? Are you using, I mean, what kind of project management are you using?
I don't have an answer for that question. We don't use a particular program. We do it through.
No, it's a methodology. How about change management?
Our change management is done through the regular paper channels that we've used before.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bishop?
Maybe I'm asking the same question, but I'm just going to say it in my best term. We make teachers and students sign off on handbook receipts. When you're communicating this level of threat to our entire body, how are we going to authenticate that this has been received? If this happens again, how do we communicate and have the accountability to say, you received this information? How are we moving forward with that? Dr. Witherspoon?
Yeah, let me speak to that briefly again. This was did it cascade
Yes.
and so forth? As we've heard, some folks got the message, some folks did not.
Yeah.
Thus, afterwards, we sent out something that, again, it went directly to everyone.
Yeah.
And in the event, and hopefully we won't have this amount of change, bad chips.
Yeah.
Now, we probably will get some cyber threats and those types of things in the future. But we will, again, act accordingly. One good thing we can do, they do with the network and so forth, as Mr. West has indicated, we do have the ability to lock out, knock off, and those types of things. So they will be able to do that. But, and again, once this we won't necessarily, we don't anticipate seeing ourselves in this type of position because we will update some computers and those types of things that you know, the chip issue has been solved, but we will make sure, depending on the message and what needs to be cascaded to whom, that is something we will certainly pay attention to.
All right, thank you.
Moving forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. West, for that. Dr. Witherspoon, we'll let you pick back up where you left off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one more item, if you will. Richland 1 schools and administrative offices will be closed Monday, September 3rd, in observance of the Labor Day holiday. Regular schedules will resume on Tuesday, September 4th, and we would like to wish everyone a very safe and happy Labor Day weekend. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon, and certainly we want to thank you for providing all of those updates for us. Certainly want to thank you and the staff of Richland One for a very smooth opening across the district. We know it's not easy, but we are very appreciative that our kids are back with us and they are learning. Just have one request. At some point in time, would you all provide for the board the summer SOAR update
absolutely.
for
Absolutely.
the previous summer, that the board would have that information at one of our upcoming meetings, if possible?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Witherspoon before we move on? Commissioner King?
I do have one. Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Witherspoon, this came to me this afternoon. In middle school, we used to administer the PSAT at no cost to students, and now there's a cost. So is that new?
That would be something we'll research and
Okay.
get back with you.
All right. If you
Okay.
could just give me an answer, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments for Superintendent? If not, thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon, for your report. We will now move on to the Office of Human Resources. Dr. Long, begin with 9-1, which is our personnel and HR updates.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of
Evening.
Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon. The personnel HR updates were provided to you during the executive session as information. I will answer any questions if you have any at this time.
This is an information item. The floor is open for any additional questions, comments for our HR department, personnel HR updates. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to 9-2, which is an administrative appointment.
The administration recommends the appointment of Tabitha Boyd Collins to the position of Assistant Administrator at Weber Elementary School pending her release for the 2018-19 academic year. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Saul, second by Commissioner King. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect the vote is 7-0. The administrative appointment, as previously stated in 8.2, has been approved. We'll now move to 9.3, which is leave of absence.
The administration recommends the approval of a leave of absence without pay for the employee discussed during the executive session. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner, was that Black or Smiley? Commissioner Black, and it was second by Commissioner King. We'll now open the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record show that the vote is 7-0. The leave of absence, as stated in 8.3, has been approved. 9.4, I'm sorry, which is the hiring of personnel. We'll run on two different numbers. But y'all know, hiring of personnel, 9.4.
The administration recommends the hiring of all the teachers listed on the attached for the 2018-19 academic year. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Black, second by Commissioner Sauls. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect the vote is 7-0. The hiring of personnel as stated in 9-4 has been approved. Thank you so much, Dr. Long.
Welcome.
At this time, we'll move to 10, which is the Office of Academics, with 10-1, the Ingenuity SC presentation by Dr. Broussard.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon. From the time I was named Chief of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Witherspoon began talking about looking at ways we could build capacity. So part of our restructuring was done with building capacity in mind. And in addition to looking at how we do things internally, we examined how our relationships with some of our partners could support our efforts to build capacity. With that in mind, I began meeting very early on with Megan Hickman and other members of the Ingenuity SC team to explore how we might leverage our relationship with them in the coming year, in the 18-19 school year, to ensure that whatever we were doing in one school would be something that could be replicated in all of our schools. So we began having conversations about things like developing playbooks. And so tonight, Megan is going to talk with you about some of the things that have occurred this school year. I believe Megan and I have met with either alone or with members of her team for at least 6 times this year, once with Dr. Witherspoon. And every time it was about how do we build capacity. And an example of that is the effort with Dress to Impress. Dress to Impress was in 4 of our high schools. It will be in each of our high schools this coming year, and we will also be doing Dress to Impress with the evening program as well as the Olympia Learning Center. The beauty of what we're doing with Dress to Impress by expanding is to see how it works in all the schools, with the intent that a playbook will be developed. Ingenuity SC will be taking more of a hands-off approach and will be supporting our team in really getting all the mechanics down so that this will be something that we can own in the future. Additionally, a real significant change for us in the coming year is the fact that we're going to be going through Advanced Ed reaccreditation, as you know, in November of 2019. And we have a couple of high schools that are already STEM accredited. We want to work toward reaccreditation for Keenan High School and Lower Richland High School. And we'll also be working toward accreditation of 4 middle schools, STEM accreditation for 4 middle schools through Advanced Ed. And so it will not be just the work of Ingenuity SC, but the collaborative work between the Office of Teaching and Learning and Ingenuity SC. And Megan's going to describe for you first some of the things that have been successful about this year, some of the lessons learned. She may even talk about some of the growing pains we had in our conversations about how we transition to a position where we're really building capacity rather than doing the work for us. And then she'll give you some specifics about some of the things that will be different for this year. So Megan Hickman, Executive Director of Ingenuity SC, welcome. We're delighted to have you.
Good evening, Megan, and welcome.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm truly am delighted to be with you this evening, not only because I think it's important for us to have the chance to share what your invested dollars are turning into across your district, but it also gives me the opportunity to reiterate, just as you do, how seriously we take your investment. It is not something that we take lightly. It has been a privilege and an honor to work in partnership with Richland School District 1 for going on 6 years now. And we take your commitment to us and your commitment to these students incredibly seriously. So what I'd like to do this evening is first remind you a little bit of who we are and the role that we play in this region very briefly. I really want to focus on the incredible successes from last year, sharing some of the highlights of our programs and the things we did with students. And then as Ms. Broussard indicated, I'd like to talk to you about how we're going to begin to transition in supporting your efforts to build innovation and capacity across the district. So again, to Chairwoman Harris, to the commissioners, to the faculty and administration and guests, thank you guys so much for a few minutes of your precious time this evening. First and foremost, a little bit about who we are. Ingenuity SC is a nonprofit organization, and our mission in this region is to make the Midlands of South Carolina the most competitive and prosperous region we can possibly be. Our sweet spot, and frankly, what I think we do better than anyone else in this region, is we are a team of project managers. So when the public sector, the private sector, economic development, and education want to come together and work on something to improve the region, they come to us and we help them envision it, create a plan for it, and we help them execute. We are unique in that we have a very big vision for what we hope the future of this region will look like. Our goal is that by 2025, this region of South Carolina will be the most competitive region among our comparative metros, and we measure that through a competitiveness report that we produce every year. And I know you all know this to be true, and I am here to share it with everyone in the audience. We will not become a competitive Southeast Metro if we do not invest in our students and our future workforce. And that is why Ingenuity SC is so grateful to be at the table with school partners like you all, because we know the future of this workforce depends upon the students we're investing in today. And that is why it is such a critical priority for our organization. A little bit about what makes us unique at Ingenuity SC from other similar organizations around the region. First and foremost, we take pleasure in managing hard and complex projects. So we don't shy away from really hard and probing questions. We appreciate them. It's what keeps us accountable. We also take a lot of pride in producing bold results. We are well-connected collaboration managers. We love working behind the scenes. So when a district like Richland 1 wants to take the lead and build capacity and be innovative, we want to be your engine behind the scenes helping you get there. And finally, we are invested in the long-term future of this region. We are not in it for the short-term gain, and we firmly believe in the importance of inspiring regional pride around the Midlands. So here's a little bit about the highlights of programs that we're exceptionally proud of from this past year. First and foremost, what I consider to be one of my babies, Lower Richland High School. We have been working in Lower Richland High School now. We just completed our 5th year of partnership in Lower Richland. I am so excited that in this past year, we were able to deliver on a robust artist in residence program that featured and focused on the Harlem Renaissance. So it allowed for the students to learn about a time in our history in a way that they had never learned about it before. We brought in artist partners Ken Cheeks and Darian McLeod, and the students had a fabulous time recreating that period in American history. We also coordinated a college discovery tour with 25 students, mostly sophomores, so that they got a taste of the college experience to come. We visited 6 campuses around Georgia and South Carolina, including public, private, and HBCU universities, giving these students exposure to what their college experience can look like if they start planning now. We also supported activities throughout the year with guest speakers, competition judges, invested time and energy around Hour of Code, Pi Day, Engineers Week, the Science Fair, the Career Fair, competition opportunities for the robotics team. Commissioner Harris, you mentioned this earlier, our sustainable program, Sustainable Lower Richland, that we launched 4 years ago. We're so proud of the opportunities and the skills that students develop in that program. We're thrilled that we expanded that program this year and added an entrepreneurial element. So now not only are the special needs students learning valuable, marketable skills participating, but we also allowed some of our other students to create an entrepreneurial environment selling the fruits and vegetables that they grew in the greenhouse, both on campus, and they also spent a Saturday at Soda City Market selling their goods and learning about what that entrepreneurial spirit means. They were featured on multiple news outlets, radio, and the newspaper for those entrepreneurial efforts. And of course, we had our 5th Dress to Impress at Lower Richland High School this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We had our 2nd year in partnership with our middle schools at Hopkins and Southeast. Both schools had coordinated field studies. So these are experiences that students got to take outside of the classroom to the Columbia Metropolitan Airport, Ideology, Riverbanks Zoo, and they got a visit to Boeing. We also implemented a club model at both schools where we brought over 10 partners into the school in both schools to provide experiences for students around cooking and nutrition, stock market, filmmaking, gardening, coding, and entrepreneurship. In Hopkins alone, we implemented their first ever Lego League where students got to compete. We also coordinated an overnight experience for 30 students who got to go to the Kennedy Space Center. I don't know if you can see this photo over here on the left, but they got to sleep underneath the Apollo 5 and meet a NASA astronaut and talk to them about what it means to be a STEM student and to pursue a career. And I will tell you, almost all of us on the team wanted to pack our bags up and go right along with them for such a cool experience. At Southeast, for the second year in a row, we helped them plan and execute their girls' conference with keynote speakers, supplies, and it was featured on Judy Gadsden's In Touch program. We also helped invest in creating their very own makerspace inside the school where students can undertake problem solving and design challenges. And one of my favorite things that we did all year long was the Artist in Residency program at Southeast Middle School, where we partnered with local hip-hop star Fat Rat Dazar and brought him into the school for the last 2 weeks of school, where he did an artist in residence around world history in 6th grade and pulled off a hip-hop history battle where students both prepared and performed hip-hop lyrics and artwork that highlighted ancient Greece and the Renaissance. We also had our first year in partnership with Gadsden Elementary School. It's the first year you all gave us an opportunity to move into elementary schools. We were really pleased to help work with them as they transitioned into becoming a true STEAM school. So most of our resources there were spent on professional development and curriculum development as they make that transition. We helped them develop a STEAM corner so they could communicate with parents on the transitionings happening in school. We did an artist in residency program there with our good friend Darian McClown, who brought Dave the Potter to life for these students. We are also really excited and on the very tail end of completing our redesign of the Gadsden Media Center, where we have turned it into a completely innovative and collaborative space for students, including a brand new maker space that students will have access to. We worked with local artist Kirkland Smith. She has engaged the entire school on creating an assemblage that will mark the entrance to this makerspace that will become a creative, engaging space for students to work and collaborate. And finally, we are turning their old, much in need of love courtyard into another learning space that the school will have access to with raised gardening beds, a meditation garden, and a weather station. So all that is coming to life in Gadsden as we speak. We also were so excited to take our signature Dress to Impress program that to date we had only done at Lower Richland High School, and we successfully expanded that to 3 additional high schools, including C.A. Johnson, Eau Claire, and Columbia. This included a Shark Tank-style entrepreneurship camp where students created a business plan, competed for cash money to start their business, and it culminated in an experience where students were paired with local mentors. They got an etiquette dinner. They went through training on how to dress for the job that they want, and got to come back to the school and show it to all of their colleagues and classmates in an interactive student showcase that's a lot of fun. So the bottom line of the FY18 or 2017-2018 school year is that all told, for your $550,000 investment, 68% of it went straight back into the schools in the form of programs, partners, experiences, hands-on learning, equipment, media coverage, and more. 32%, and this was important, I really wanted to clarify here, 32% was paid for staff and for our time to be able to deliver on these programs. We invested just short of 2,000 man-hours in the program, which equated to about $91 an hour for the team and our time to bring this programs to life. And I'm so excited about what we did for those 2,000 valuable hours with students across the district. Not only that, but we brought over 50 unique programs to life, impacting over 2,800 students. 80 teachers participated in either our teacher discovery days or professional development. We earned 40 individual pieces of positive media coverage for the district that equated to an estimated 26,500 views of positive news for the school district. And that's invaluable. When you talk about what it means to build a competitive environment, that goes an awful long way. So very quickly, what we're going to be focused on in the next year, as Ms. Brassard mentioned, we're going to be working through a transition year this year, where we've been focused heavily on the Lower Richland cluster and learning and innovating. The district is now building capacity and innovating across the entire district, and they've asked us to support those efforts, taking what we've learned working in the Lower Richland cluster and bringing that to life across the district. So our challenge this year will be, how do we maintain the good stuff that we've started in Richland 1, and how do we expand that across the district so that other students and schools get access to that too? So some of the things that we're going to be working with is building a prototype and how-to playbook to bring those boys and girls conferences to life across the district. We're going to be coordinating on the club program at Southeast Middle, creating a playbook for that other middle schools around the district can use to bring that program to life. We're going to continue investing heavily in Gadsden Elementary and Lower Richland High School as they're in a pivotal point of change. We want to make sure we see them through that change and help them into their new period of life as true STEAM schools. So we'll continue investing in those schools and in our sustainable Lower Richland program and our garden program. As Ms. Brassard mentioned, we are going to be partnering with you all, following your lead as you seek to get some schools both reaccredited and accredited for the first time as STEM certified schools through Advanced Ed. So we'll be working with Lower Richland, Keenan, Hopkins Middle, Southeast Middle, W.A. Perry, and Gadsden. We're going to sponsor some district-wide teacher discovery days for the first time this year, focused on math teachers. That will lead into something we're really excited about, launching a district-wide Rubik's League, where students will have competitive opportunities to compete against each other in 2 tournaments that we'll host on your behalf for students to come together and compete with Rubik's Cubes. Apparently those things have come back into style. Who knew? But they're very popular. And finally, we're excited to work as a supporting partner for the district as you all look to work with specific schools on identity building and branding, using some of the skills we've developed in project management and helping specific schools around the district really define who they are and what's important to them. And then finally, as was already mentioned, we are now going to officially be delivering our Dress to Impress program across the entire district. So every high school in the district will get to experience this one-of-a-kind program this year. We're so excited to get to know other students around the district through this program. We'll be recruiting over 100 volunteers from the community to partner with students who participate in this program, so they'll each get a mentor, they'll each get an etiquette dinner experience. We're adding a new component this year with a celebrity guest, and we can't wait to leverage some of our friends and partners around the community to come and meet some of the Richland 1 students. And as always, they'll all go back to their schools and host their showcase event showing their fellow students what they've learned through the experience. So I've taken too much time, but it was important to get to share some of the results we had this year and some of what we're excited about in the year to come. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got them.
Megan, we certainly want to thank you for the presentation. Before I go to my remarks, I'm going to yield to my colleagues for any questions or comments that they may have at this time for your presentation. Commissioner Bishop.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. For our sustainability as it begins to go across the district, with this playbook that you are going to pass out at different levels in different communities, we don't foresee it being diluted or reduced in model, right, or effectiveness, correct?
Yeah, that's going to be, no, the short answer is absolutely not. And that therein lies our challenge, right?
Yeah.
How do we create a tool that other schools can use where they can seek and utilize us as a thinking partner and a planning partner, but where they're being empowered to do the doing, and we're serving as a consultant to them along the way. That's the kind of capacity that we're hoping to build with these tools.
Yes, I see with LR community was piloted and concentrated. As you become broad, just don't want to lose the scope of effectiveness.
Sure.
Because I'm excited to see it go throughout the district. I do foresee some of your challenges being something we have to work through and overcome. So I'm excited about meeting those barriers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bishop. Any other comments or questions at this time? Not. Megan, I want to thank you for your presentation and also apologize because I only gave you credit for 2,000 students for $550,000, but it's 2,800 students. And I want to say thank you because I, along with several of my colleagues, have had the opportunity to see all of these programs in action, up close and personal, and see students, and I'll use SPED again, the way we taught math to those students by the weight of a worm, where they retained it was just miraculous. And it went a long ways because those students are doing very well right now because of the opportunities that Ingenuity has provided for them. And you said something that was very important. This is not a cost. This is an investment into the future of our children. And certainly we do want this program to build capacity. We're proud that our schools here in Richland 1, namely Keenan and Lower Richland, was two of the first high schools to ever be accredited as national STEM schools because of our partnership with you. So that says a lot, and we are certainly excited about all of the schools that are now going to get a taste of Dress for Success. I didn't know that we were doing so much this school year, but we're certainly excited to see this program continue to grow across the district. As my colleagues, some of you may remember, that is what we talked about when this first started, was piloting the program and then it growing to other areas of the district. So we certainly want to thank you for your efforts and thank you for your presentation. And certainly we'll all be around to celebrate and join in at all of those events that you will be offering throughout the school year. So thank you so very much for that presentation. Ms. King?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Megan. You're always a super great presenter, so I always enjoy listening to you. I want to ask you, and it's also for Dr. Witherspoon, Sagacious Partners. So explain something to me and how the relationship works. And then I want to understand also, I saw that Richland 1 is a client of Sagacious, and that's on the website. And so that's why I was just wondering if we also have a relationship there.
Yeah, I'd be glad to explain it now, or we can do it offline, whatever you prefer.
No, that's fine. We can do it offline, or Dr. Witherspoon. I mean, I was just curious just to know what, if we're client also of Sagacious Partners, because I saw that on their website, and so it may be an error, but it's there.
Yeah, we've had some conversation and discussion, but that's
it.
Yeah.
So okay.
But I would love to provide clarity there,
Sure.
explaining the relationship and making
Okay.
sure that you're crystal clear on that. Yeah.
And there may be some different parts to the puzzle. I was just trying to understand the dynamics there.
Sure. I'd be glad to explain.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
If there are no other questions or comments, thank you so much, Megan, for that awesome presentation. We look forward to working with you this school year. We'll now move on to the Office of Operations. With 11-1, which is the SCE&G electrical easement request for Lower Richland High School athletic improvements. And that is Mr. Perkins.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon, the administration is recommending approval of the attached electrical easement from South Carolina Electric and Gas. The document is needed to provide additional electrical equipment and services to Lower Richland High School athletic field improvements. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
The move by Commissioner King, second by Commissioner Sauls. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect the vote is 7-0. The SENG electrical easement request has been approved as previously stated in 11-1. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. This time we'll call up Mr. Hardison. And if there's no objection from the board, we'd like to take 11-2 through 11-7 as one item, one vote. We can do all the questions as separately if possible.
Madam Chair, Board of School Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon. The administration recommends approval of the following contracts. Contract for Columbia High School Auditorium HVAC replacement. A contract for Eau Claire High School fire alarm replacement. A contract for Meteor professional development and staff training for instructional leaders. A contract for janitorial supplies, equipment, training, and services. A contract for professional development and support for teachers in reading. And lastly, a contract for wireless software support renewal. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
The move by Commissioner Saul, second by Commissioner King. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments on any of the items as previously stated.
Yes,
Ms. King?
thank you. On 11.6, what kind of professional development in supporting teachers in reading? What, can you elaborate on that one? Is that a particular, is it a,
Dr. Hadley was going to address.
okay.
Good evening. We will be providing professional development with the Wilson Reading Program. The focus
Pardon
is on,
one second.
I'm sorry.
Can we? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Hagwood. I'm sorry.
The professional development, it will be in the Wilson Reading Program, and the focus is on helping students who are Tier 3 readers, which are our most, the students that need the most intensive help. And so we'll have all of our reading interventionists in the district going through this program.
And is that a particular method or methodology or approach or?
Orton Gillingham, yes.
Oh, okay, all right, well, I know that name.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from anyone at this time? Not, we will call for the vote. Let the records reflect that the vote is 7-0. The items as previously stated in 11.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 have been approved. Thank you so much, Mr. Hardison. Before we adjourn, I want to thank Commissioner Black for something that he said during the invocation, powerful point that he pointed out. He said, we don't just have a job to do, but we have a purpose to fulfill. I encourage all of my colleagues, as well as this faculty and staff of Richland 1, to continue to remember that we have a purpose to fulfill. This is not just a job, but that it's a purpose. Thank you so much, Commissioner Black, for that statement that you made earlier on. But if there's no objection from the board, before we adjourn, our next meeting is scheduled for September the 11th, 2018 at Bradley Elementary School at 3032 Pine Belt Road here in Columbia, South Carolina. And if there's no objection from my colleagues, you can consider yourselves adjourned.